Hello and welcome to another MiTunes podcast right here at manxradio.com.
Marc Tyley, the nation's station, Manx Radio.
Another week on MiTunes with me, Marc Tyley, and my guest all this week, Polly Palfreman, although you probably know him as Polly. Well, I do. Polly, welcome to MiTunes.
Hi, Mark.
It's good to have you here. Now, if you don't know this man, well, you haven't been around the sort of tighter edge of the Manx music scene, I would suggest. Or maybe you haven't been in the Villa Marina and see just who's making it sound all good, because that's what he does most of the time. But I want to go right back to you, a small chap. When did you first get hold of an instrument?
A musical instrument.
Yeah, yes.
A musical instrument. I was about 15 stroke 16.
Okay, school days then?
Yeah, sort of school days. We grew up in Peel, and an old band that all our mates were in was called the Punters. And they decided to split up, and I always fancied being a drummer. And anyway, the bass player was selling his bass gear, Bobby. And I ended up buying that. That was the start of my musical endeavours.
And it's been bass pretty much along the way.
Yeah, all bass. Yeah, I've always fancied playing other instruments, but either never had the time or the skills, I suppose.
Well, I don't know you say that, but I'm around musical circles. It's often been said that it's the bass player who gets the attraction of people who are lusting after that bass player. I mean, the bass man.
Yeah, this has happened in the past. Yeah. In years gone by, it's caused a few, a few problems, few issues.
People think it's the lead singer, lead guitarist. No, it's the bass man.
No.
It's the driving force of any band, really.
Yeah, and it's all about the attitude, and bass players seem to have the best attitudes.
It is. I think also, because generally speaking, you're only playing one note at a time, you got more time to enjoy the gig as well.
Yeah. I mean, my background is punk, so I've got a sort of like quite a punkish attitude towards things. So whenever I was playing, always play for myself. It was a good way for me to get my emotion out by playing the bass. And on a stage with the adrenaline going. And I only ever did it for myself and obviously the people I was playing with. And if anybody wanted to come along for the ride and join in, brilliant.
So be it. The emergence of punk, I remember it so well. And I went to see The Damned pretty early on when they burst on. I never saw the Sex Pistols live, but I saw The Damned. And wow. As you say, energy, raw, it was just unbelievable, relentless.
Yeah, well, it changed. I mean, I was still quite young. I'm still quite young now. But when you're growing up, we were listening to the likes of 10cc, Rubettes, Status Quo, those sort of early days. And then all of a sudden, the punk thing came along, and it hit me like somebody had smashed a door in my face. Initially, it was the music. I remember getting more into the sort of what I call the real side of punk. And a few years ago, we were interviewed by a magazine called Distorted when we announced the American tour and the release of the Poison Heart album. And they said, "What is punk to you?" And I remember I said it was about the music, but it wasn't about the music. It was about the establishment. It wasn't necessarily anti-establishment, but it was about questioning the establishment. Because, the reality is, and we see it now, that if the establishment says something, the establishment is right, and it's not. So you question it. And I think it's something that young people don't do enough of these days.
I think it has changed. It certainly was more prevalent at that onset of punk and for many years after.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Because, at the end of the day, there was politics brought into it. There was the old Maggie Thatcher sort of thing. And one of my heroes was Joe Strummer. He's got a very different political side than I have. I mean, most of them have. I'm further to the right, and most of them were, further to the left. But for me, it wasn't about left or right. It was about there's good on both sides, and why we can't just sort of like funnel all of the good stuff and get rid of all of the rubbish out the side.
We will talk a lot more about the Poison Hearts tomorrow, but for now, I want to hear this track because I do believe that when this lady came here, she dedicated it to you.
Yeah. So she played the Villa be 2 years ago now. 3 years.
It must be 3. Suzanne Vega.
Yeah, Suzanne Vega, and I was talking to her and a guitarist beforehand. Jerry Leonard played with David Bowie and that, and I asked her if she was playing this track, and she said yeah. Jerry said why, and I said to him, I said, well, it came out in 1985, and it was a track that I was still sort of very into the punk sort of side of things. So I appreciated all the music, but I sort of like kept it under the radar, if you like. So I had the album and that. But this particular track, The Queen and the Soldier, is quite a punk type of thing, whereby the soldier declares undying loyalty and devotion to his queen. And at the very last minute, the queen shuts the door in his face, and as though he's just a no meaning to what he's doing, and that resonated with me an awful lot. And it's been a song that I play it every now and again.
Well, let's have it now. It's Suzanne Vega, and this is Queen and the Soldier.
Upon the Queen's door, he said, I am not fighting for you anymore. And the Queen knew she'd seen his face someplace before, and slowly she led him inside. He said, I've watched your palace up here on the hill, and I've wondered who's the woman for whom we all kill. But I am leaving tomorrow, what you will. Only first I am asking you why. Down the long narrow hall he was led, into her room with her tapestries red, and she never once took the crown from her head. She asked him there to sit down. He said, I see you now, and you are so very young, but I've seen more battles lost than I have battles won, and I've got this intuition, says it's all for your fun. And now will you tell me why? Well, the young queen, she fixed him with an arrogant eye. She said, you won't understand, and you may as well not try. But her face was a child, and he thought she would cry. But she closed herself up like a fan, and she said, I've swallowed a secret burning thread. It cuts me inside, and often I've bled. And he laid his hand then on the top of her head, and he bowed her down to the ground. Tell me, how hungry are you? How weak you must feel, as you are living here alone and you are never revealed. But I won't march again on your battlefield. And he took her to the window to see, and the sun, it was gold, though the sky, it was gray. And she wanted more than she ever could say. But she knew how it frightened her, and she turned away and would not look at his face again. but the crown it had fallen, and she thought she would break, and she stood there ashamed of the way her heart ached, and she took him to the doorstep, and she asked him to wait. She would only be a moment inside. Out in the distance her order was heard, and the soldier was killed, still waiting for her word. And while the queen went on strangling in the solitude she preferred, the battle continued on.
MiTunes this week with Anthony, that's Polly Palfreman, who's often seen getting the sound beautifully correct at the Villa Marina, but he's also an excellent bass player. And Polly, can we talk about the Poison Hearts? When did you start up with these guys?
Well, we got the Poison Hearts together in the back end of 2006, a couple of us, and then we started recruiting various sort of bodies. Marc Tyley on vocals. We had trouble with drummers, so we had various sort of drummers in and out of the Poison Hearts until Steve Leach raised his... Well, Steve actually moved to the Isle of Man, and we think we'd recruited him while he was on the boat coming over, to be honest with you.
I'll just stop you there, because obviously I've mentioned on many guests, bass players and drummers have been in that seat. The relationship you have with the drummer, if that's not right, it isn't going to work at all, is it?
No, it's not. And I've worked with some great drummers. Probably only two drummers that I could say I'd lay my hat on, and one of them is Steve Leach, and the other one is Brian Kinraid. When Steve came into the band, it's sort of like I don't think he knew really what he was getting himself in for, but it gelled. You know, it really did gel. The album came out in 2008, and it coincided us with organising a tour of America with a band called the Lusties, and it was called the Lustful Hearts Tour. And about 4 or 5 weeks before we were due to go out to America, the Lusties imploded because of various sort of rock and roll debauchery and drink and stuff like that. So the guy who had actually set it up, he was sort of he knew a lot of people. He looked after the Obama inauguration and stuff like that. But we'd been talking to one of the guys who played with Marky Ramone at the time, and he said to us, if you're going to go out and do this tour on your own, and I think it was about 14 or 15 dates down the East Coast, and he said, you better take some henchmen with you and make sure that you've got guns. He said, I've done all of those.
Whoa.
And just make sure that you are ready for trouble. He said, because there will be trouble. And I think it was just one of those things. It was like, we don't need this. So the album came out. The album had done quite well in America. We'd actually got a TV appearance lined up for it as well. So yeah, it was a shame that never happened. But, one thing led to another. We did some great gigs. And then we supported the Stranglers. And my bass playing moment, I think, concluded my whole existence on the bass guitar. Concluded with supporting the Stranglers, because JJ Burnell came up to me afterwards and he said, I tell you what, Polly, he said, that was some bass playing.
Wow.
And I was
From
like,
Jean-Jacques Burnell. That's all right, isn't it? That'll do.
But it never registered at the time. It was only the day after, and I thought, did he really say that to me?
He did.
That was brilliant. And then the Poison Hearts, we carried on for a few years, but then we sort of like imploded. Things changed. Personal lives change and so on and so forth, so it sort of all went awry.
But I think I'm not going to tease this out, because we'll talk about this a little later in the week. There may be a revival coming.
There may be something.
Thank you. Let's have today's track though. Well, we talked about punk at the beginning of the week. We don't get better than this.
Yeah, this is by the almighty Sex Pistols. This is Whole Days in the Sun. It's a track that resonates me off that album that we can't mention on air, and it's one that I remember listening to a great Chris Thomas interview, who produced it, and he said the people who played on this, he said, it's just listen to it. He said it's like when it comes in, it's just like the Panzer Division.
It's time on this week of MiTunes to talk to my guest about the day job. Anthony, Polly Palfreman, mixer of sound, creator of wonder at the Villa Marina and the Gaiety. And, well, thank you from all of us for the work you do down there, Polly. But, just talk us through the day job. I mean, setting up with a band, you may not have even met them before, and suddenly you've got control over everything.
Yeah, so it's a team effort
Yeah.
at the end of the day. I mean, but when you go to a gig down at the Ville, you don't realise how much effort goes into it. I'll give you an example. Last week we did the definitely Oasis guys, and prior to them coming over, we get a sort of like a technical spec. Now these guys, good band. They are a tribute band, so the technical spec is a little bit riot in places. And then we got the heads up that they weren't coming over early. They were coming over on the Ben McCree in their van, so they wouldn't arrive at the venue until about 6:30.
On the night of the show?
On the night of the show.
Whoa.
And doors are open at 7:30, and they're due to go on at 8:30. So, I mean, and this does happen quite a lot. It happened with the Inspiral Carpets a couple of years ago with us. So we get in there early. We were in there about 12 o'clock. We set a projector screen up. They have monitors, so you're a dedicated monitor engineer on stage. So we'd set that all up. We'd set all of the channels up, tested all the channels. So the reality is that we gave ourselves a big head start. So when they walked in, it's set their gear up, let's get some stage levels and that sort of thing, and then do a quick sound check. It was a quick sound check. So I then went into the gig up front of house to mix it for everybody that was in there, 80% confident.
Yeah.
That's what I do, because at the end of the day, that room is a terrible room when it's empty.
Yes.
It's
Changes dramatically once the floor's full of people.
It
and the whole
does.
thing.
It does, but sometimes not for the best. So where I have to be at this moment until we get some reinvestment in the place is that I have to sort of like get to about 80%, and then the first couple of songs just fine tune it. I don't have to worry about the stage sound because I've got a monitor engineer doing that for me.
And he or she's looking after what the band can hear.
Yeah. So a monitor engineer, it's probably the hardest job, in the house, really, because at the end of the day, if you can get and I love being a monitor engineer, if you can get a band happy with their stage sound, they don't have to think about that, so they can just concentrate on the performance. And then my job at front of house is to make sure that everybody in there is getting what they should be getting.
I think sometimes, I remember the virtual small earthquakes created by Gary Newman when he came over a few years ago.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the sound of that band, and particularly in the bass end, I thought the place was going to come down. I mean, that must be what he wanted. He wanted that sort of sound.
Yeah, so the Ghost Nation tour that he did,
Yeah.
It was all about the apocalyptic sort of feel,
And it did.
And there's nothing better to get apocalyptic feel than all the sub and bass in it. Like, but it was great.
It was an awesome night.
Yeah.
It was
really
an absolutely awesome night.
So,
I mean, sometimes I'm guessing on some of the bigger bands they bring people with them to do their own mixing, and then you just sort of set it up and help them, and then
absolutely.
sit to one side.
I mean, they're great from the point of view that they know exactly what they're doing with the band because they're doing it all the time. If they're using our system, the front of house engineer will have his own desk, so we'd sit down in front of our desk. He would give me a feed from his desk, and we would feed it then into our system. My job then is to actually make sure that I'm providing the sound within the building of the feel that he's wants that is coming off his desk.
Right.
That sometimes can be sort of like quite challenging. Most of visiting engineers these days are good. Some of them a little bit edgy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's...
Let's have this third track of the week. Oh, any excuse to get a bit of Big Country in, Polly. Love this. I love this band.
Yeah, Big Country. I never saw Big Country. Never got the opportunity. I never got the opportunity to see the previous incarnation, which were the Skids. But I did get to see the Skids a couple of years ago down at the Albert Hall. Absolutely amazing. And this track is something that resonates from a time in my life where I'd lost somebody who was very, very important to me. And just prior to the track coming out, I'd lost my little girl as well. And Ships is, for me, quite selfish because it's a little bit about me.
Okay.
Which is probably very, very unfair to, the people that, it relates to. So.
Well, let's have it. And it is Big Country. It is Ships.
Look at him now. Another used man. Wearing the passing of his dignity with all the courage that he can. He stood in the storm, carved out in stone. He said, I wore my honesty with pride in everything I've done. So where were you when my ship went Look at her now, all tired and worn. She never thought her life would come to be so cold or so blue. She walked in the light, fought bondage for love. She said, I cast off the chains that I was born with, but it never was enough. And where were you when my ship went down? Where were you when I let you ground? Where were you when I turned it around? Where were you when they burned me down? Silent souls washed up on the shore, left to walk the sands evermore, evermore. And now where were you when my ship went down? Look at us now, just a chasing our lives. Make like the saviors of the planet, we're just trying to get by. You may walk the line, now you may see it all through. I know you cry yourself to sleep at night, just wondering what to do. And where were you when my ship went down? Where were you when I let you ground? Where were you when I turned it around? Where were you when they burned me down? Where were you when my ship went down? Where were you when I let you ground? Where were you when I turned it around? Where were you when they burned me down? And now where were you when that ship went down? Where were you when my ship went down? Where were you when I let you ground? Where were you when I turned it around? Where were you when they burned me down?
If you were listening closely to the earlier editions of MiTunes, you'd have heard my guest, Anthony, Polly Palfreman, and me, suggest that maybe the Poison Hearts might be coming back for another bite of the big old cherry of punk.
There's a
Come on, what's going on?
There's a so this started like a few months ago, and you get this strange message on Facebook, do you fancy doing the Poison Hearts again? And it's like, you'd wait a couple of days and somebody go, yeah, okay, and so on and so forth. Anyway, there seems to be a consensus that if we can get our acts together, we might play a few gigs.
Good. So what will the lineup be this incarnation?
So
you on the bass, obviously.
Yeah. So me on the bass, Steve Halsell on guitar, Steve Leach on drums, Marc Tyley on vocals. I've not heard from the other guitarists yet, but I'm fairly certain that we'll be. I did bump into Steve a couple of days ago where we were out on. I bumped into him, funnily enough, on the new Ramsey Pier,
bits of it.
Yeah, bits of it. Yeah, which is an extremely impressive.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Piece of
absolutely beautiful restoration
that the guys are doing up there. And I bumped into Steve and I said, "This would be a good place for a Poison Hearts gig, wouldn't it?" He said, "No, it's too out in the open. We wouldn't be able to swear." And I said, "Well, we're too old for swearing." And he just looked at me and went, "No, we're not."
No, we're not. I thought you were going to say the problem is half the audience should be fish, because when you're playing on a pier, you get a few people, a lot of fish.
Yeah, exactly. But it would be a great venue, especially if it got, if we were looking at it, if it got finished and there was a pub on the end. It'd be brilliant.
Nice. So. You mentioned that the American tour didn't happen, and it sounded like probably a good job it didn't. It could have been pretty hairy by what you were saying about the be prepared for anything. You did take the band off the island, though, didn't you?
No.
Never did. I thought you did. I thought you played in Liverpool.
No. We were going to play.
Okay.
Yeah. That was the thing with the Poison Hearts. We always seem to destroy things. We were booked to play Rebellion Festival.
That was it.
And the band imploded.
Okay.
We tried to sort of carry it on a little bit further down the line. And that sort of didn't really work. The boys carried on. I didn't play for a couple of years. When they did a few gigs. They played with Slade, supported Slade and that, and I never played with them. It's been a few years. Mark's been very busy. I mean, Mark's been playing in he's got quite a big following in Germany and that sort of thing, and he's been out there. Yeah. All the other boys have been busy. Steve plays in about 500 different bands at the same time. And I've been extremely busy and extremely focused on what I'm doing, away from the band on the mix sort of side of things, logistics sort of side of things.
I mean, our dear departed friend Anglin was a freelance engineer, and after he had passed away, you've taken over a lot of his work, but you're full-time at the Villa now.
Yeah. I'm employed by the establishment.
Yes.
Which I still question.
Punk bass player works for establishment. Ooh.
Yeah, no, it doesn't resonate very well, but it's one of those things that I can carry my values forward and be pragmatic about a lot of different things. And I still do ask the questions, and I still push people, and I still annoy people. That's what it's about. That's the way of getting things done.
We wouldn't have it any other way. Again, this track, I remember getting it into the radio station where I was at the time, put it on, 45, played it and thought, I'm just never going to stop playing this. I'm just delighted you've chosen something by the Ruts. Tell me about this.
I think if you talk to any of my musical friends, this would be my signature tune. It's the one that I absolutely love playing the bass line on the bass. And if I pick up a bass, it's generally one thing that I will play, even if I'm just messing about. And it's the Ruts, and it's called Babylon's Burning.
Polly, it's been a great week. Thank you for coming
Cheers,
in on MiTunes. Here's to the Poison Hearts. Come on, get it together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a possibility.
Thank you.
Babylon's burning. You'll burn the street. You'll burn your houses with anxiety. With anxiety. Babylon's burning. Babylon's burning with anxiety. Babylon's burning. Babylon's burning. Babylon's like a furious smoldering with ignorance and hate and with anxiety. Babylon was burning, Babylon was burning with anxiety. Babylon was burning, Babylon was burning, Babylon was burning, baby, can't you see? Babylon is burning with anxiety.
The Ruts and Babylon's Burning. What a way to finish this particular MiTunes with Anthony Polly Palfreman. Thank you, sir. Cracking week, as ever. And don't forget to keep coming back here to banksradio.com for more podcasts. They're popping up all the time. And join me when you can, 9:30 to 12, for the morning show, Monday to Friday on Manx Radio.